I am super excited to do this podcast. Today's going to be a little different for you listeners out there. I asked my wife the other day, I said, I need to find a new guest for the show. And she said, well, I have an idea. Why don't you be the guest and I will interview you? So that's what this podcast is all about. It's about me, your host, Billy Gallo. And I want to welcome my beautiful wife, the founder of Manhattan Model Studios, my soulmate, my life partner, the air that I breathe, the food that I eat, the wind beneath my wings, my everything, my beautiful wife, Diana Gallo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Again.
Thank you. Yeah, this is my second time.
Yes, it is.
So exciting. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to interview you because you know what? Your guests, they get to talk about themselves. You interview them, but nobody has interviewed you on this show.
That is true.
And you have a lot of experience, a lot of expertise. So it's my turn to interview you. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay.
I got to say, I'm a little nervous. I don't know what's coming.
In with the good.
Okay.
With the bad. Okay. Right. First question for you. This is an easy one. Don't be nervous.
Okay.
When did you first know that you wanted to be an actor?
First know. Ooh, that's a tough one. I think what I was probably like 8 or 9, maybe around the 8 or 9. I used to go to the local butcher with my mother, and I would lay on the floor like a slice of bacon in a frying pan, and I would fry up, and spit would come out and I'd shrink, and the butcher would laugh and he would cut me a slice of bologna and I got a reward for my performance. And both of my sisters were with me and they didn't get a slice of bologna. I was the only one with a slice of bologna. So I think that's where, I was called hyperactive as a kid. I was told, it's kind of bouncing off the walls. And I had teachers that were pretty awesome. They'd take me out of my classroom and they would let me perform for the other kids. And I do my bacon act, or I Love Lucy. And I knew Ricky Ricardo's, coming in and answer, hey, Lucy, I'm home. And I do this whole Babalu act. And, I do pantomime. And, the teachers would take me from classroom to classroom to classroom and I'd perform. And
so you would get a lot of positive attention for it.
Well, I think that's the way I got love. For me as a young boy, I had a rough childhood, and I think I was trying to get attention, and that was my way to get attention. And then I felt rewarded. I felt loved. I mean, those are the few times where I really felt like appreciated. I felt comfortable doing that. I was always uncomfortable being me. It was more comfortable being somebody else.
Right. Well, that's the perfect lead in for my next question. So my next question for you is, okay, you and I have super different childhoods. I'm born and raised in LA, grew up in a small town called Eagle Rock, riding my bike, skateboarding, skating around the neighborhood. My parents would say, just come home before dark. We knew all the neighbors, all the kids, we would just play. You had the same thing, but it was in the streets of New York and Brooklyn in the 70s. So your childhood was very different. Tell us about your childhood and tell us how you feel that childhood has influenced you as an actor and as a writer and as a producer.
Well, growing up in Brooklyn I wouldn't change anything. I mean, I love growing up in Brooklyn. I am Brooklyn. It's part of who I am. And it formed me. And yeah, Brooklyn, where I grew up, as a kid, we were poor. I come from a broken home. My father wasn't around. My mother did her best to raise me and my 2 sisters. If there was one egg, we'd split it. If there was no hot water, to take a bath. She would heat water and, give us a bath. If there was no heat in the house, she would open the oven door. So, we grew up, poor, and the block that I grew up on was amazing. I mean, I grew up in an amazing neighborhood. Everybody knew everybody. It was an amazing place to grow up. And then, the 70s hit, and drugs and heroin and gangs and graffiti covered walls, and it became a dangerous place. I mean, the building that we used to live in, I used to have to climb over heroin addicts to get to school.
So it wasn't dangerous when you were super small. It started to
Yeah,
evolve.
when, in the early 70s, it was still, it was a really great neighborhood. Everybody, the kids played in the street. I mean, we played every game you could possibly think of. We played stickball and football, and, on my block, in my building alone, there were 20 kids my age. On my block, we had a whole team. So we would compete, like, from 40th Street would compete against 41st Street. We'd play in the street all day long, and it was a great neighborhood. But then, as things started to change, I'd be playing Skelsies, a little game we play in Brooklyn, shooting these little bottle caps, and, two guys would get into a fight, and one guy would go get a machete and hit the other guy in the face, and his face would be hanging off. And, that was blood all over my Skelsey court.
That did not happen in my neighborhood.
No. So, yeah, I mean, it was, it formed me and made me who I am. There was a lot of stuff that happened along the way. I mean, if there was a checklist of everything that could possibly go wrong to a child, I check all the boxes. And, I used to think that was a bad thing, but I realized I had to go through all of that to become the man I am today, the father I am today, the husband I am today, the teacher I am today. I had to go through that. My mess is my message. This is what, I do is, when I have students, I know what it's like. I've been there. I know their struggles. And, since I've been down that path, and I know where the potholes are, and, I know you don't want to go down that alley. That's a bad one. So I get to be the guide, and that's how it's really formed my teaching, and how it's formed me as in, I'm a writer. I'm writing a film right now about my life as a producer. I learned, listen, if you could survive on those streets where I grew up, Hollywood's no big deal.
So your childhood was not only a catalyst for you to get out, find something better, but it has also given you so much to write about, to create about, to express. Because for people like myself who didn't grow up in something, that kind of neighborhood, when you tell me these stories, I'm just like, wow. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that enjoys hearing about this, something different than what I experienced.
Yeah, you can't make it up. I mean, I'm in the process of writing a film right now about my life story, and when I'm sitting with my writing partner, and it's just, it's something out of a movie. You can't make it up. I mean, when I was 11, they were filming a movie in my neighborhood. All of a sudden, I was a kid coming home from the park, and I walked down my block, and there was these cameras and trucks, and this magical stuff was happening on my block. And I ran down the street, and I said, "What's going on here?" And they said, "We're making a movie." I go, "Well, how do you get in a movie? I want to be in a movie." And I ran up to Morgana King, who played Marlon Brando's wife in The Godfather, and she showed me a picture and a resume. I ran home, took a Polaroid picture of myself, wrote some shit down on a piece of loose leaf paper, all my, my bacon routine and my monkey and my Ricky Ricardo, and I handed it to her, and she got a kick out of it, and she gave it to the casting director, and the casting director said, "Go home, kid. We're going to stick you, go get your parents. We're going to stick you in the movie." And I ran home, Ma, they're going to stick me in a movie. And she's like, "You don't know what, you stay in the house. You don't know what kind of movie they're making over there." So I ran down the street. I said, "Listen, my mother doesn't believe you. You got to tell her." I dragged the director to the house. He said, "We're Universal Pictures. We're going to pay your son. You're going to pay him? Take him." And, that's when I got paid. And I showed up to the set, and I was just a background actor. They needed kids for the neighborhood, but there was a young actor. His name was Glenn Scarpelli. He had a speaking role, a lead in the film, and he wasn't there the day that I showed up. And I looked just like him, so everybody thought I was him. So they gave me the star treatment. They powdered my nose. Can I get you anything? I sat in his chair, and I
Made
really,
yourself right at home.
I really, I played along. They were calling me Glenn. I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm good with Glenn. Yes, Glenn, come here, Glenn. Okay, I'm coming. And that's truly when I got bit by the bug. I mean, they lived on my block for a month during the summer, and I watched them. And it was film school for a young boy. I followed them wherever they go. I'd even sneak into they built almost like a sound stage on my block. And I'd sneak in, and it was magical, with the fake walls and the lights and all the stuff. It was truly like, that's when I truly got bit by the bug. And then shortly after, a year, maybe almost a year later, they were filming Saturday Night Fever in my neighborhood. And I watched John Travolta till 4 o'clock in the morning, doing this fight scene coming out of a Barracuda club and a stunt. And it was truly magical. And when he went to his trailer, he was bombarded by screaming girls. Oh, they would just, he was Vinnie Barbarino from Welcome Back, Kotter, and it was madness. And he gave me his autograph, and I knew, I was like, oh, I want to do this.
That's what you want.
That's what I want. I wanted some of that attention.
Yeah. So fast forward to when you were 18 and you decided to leave New York. Tell us about that.
Well, so what happened is, I had this dream and I wanted to be an actor, but everybody I told my dream to laughed at me, told me it couldn't be done. I mean, I remember there was a casting director that gave my mother's business card, and he said, give me a call, I can help your son. And I remember asking my mother, Mom, call him. And she never called him. And I created a story. Little Billy created a story that my mother doesn't believe in me. When I look back now, I know, and my mother was streetwise New York. My mother's gorgeous, especially
Stunning.
Back in the day. She was like, heads would turn. And my mother knew that this guy was not really interested in me. He was interested in her, and she wasn't interested in him. So she never called him. So, but the little boy didn't know that. The little boy created a story like, my mother doesn't believe in me. So, I carried that little story around with me. And, when I got teenage, 15, 16, without a dad around, I kind of banged heads with my mom, and I ran away from home, and I was running the streets of Brooklyn and kind of doing some dumb stuff. And I found a father figure on the streets in New York, somebody I looked up to. He was a wise guy, with the diamond pinky ring and the double-breasted suits. And, he used to get me into clubs and taught me a whole new life. And I found my idol. Cut to one day after school, I'm walking up the street. He walks into a jewelry store, and then he walks into a clothing store. Long story short, the guy behind the counter shot him 5 times in front of me. So I watched the guy that I wanted to be laying on the floor with his brains, pumping out of his head. And I remember looking down at him and going, maybe this is not the life for me. This is not, I went to his wake, and I looked at him, there was an open casket, if you can believe that. And I said, I got to change my life.
Yeah, you don't want to end up like that.
I don't want to end up like that, because I had seen a lot of people winding up, the guys that I grew up with, dead or in jail. And I never thought I'd make it to 18 years old at that time. So I was at a racetrack. I won a couple $100. My friend said, what are you going to do with the money? I said, I'm going to Hollywood. Everybody laughed at me again. I even told my acting, my guidance counselor scooped me up one day for being a truant, and they sent me to the dean's office. No, it was the dean's office, then to the guidance counselor. And she said, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I want to be an actor. And she laughed at me. And she said, okay, well, if you were serious about being an actor, you should go see, the director, Mr. Carucci, in the lunchroom. They're casting a play. You should go down there. So I did. And they were doing Grease. And I auditioned. I got the lead role as Danny Zuko. And all of a sudden, part of it, you had to stay in school or whatever. And my friends would come pull up in a stolen car and say, come on, jump in. And I go, no, I got to go to rehearsals. They call me names, every other name in the book. And,
Wow.
the play was sold out and it was a big success. And then I went to my teacher and I said, I want to be an actor. What advice do you have for me? And he told me to forget about it, kid.
Wow.
So here was another person that didn't believe in me. So, it was constantly, people did not believe in my dream, but I didn't let that stop me. I believed in my dream. And then at 18, at $200, came out to Hollywood, and I've been living the dream ever since.
So, and when we met in 1997, you had been in Hollywood for a few years by then, right? Like maybe
I came out December 15th of 1984. I had just turned November. I had turned 18. I was waiting till I turned 18. And then I came out like 10 days before Christmas. And it was the worst Christmas ever. It literally, that song, It Never Rains in Southern California? Bullshit. It rained for like 3 weeks straight.
Once in a while it does rain in Southern
I was miserable. I was lonely. I didn't know, I had this grand idea that Universal Studios, the ones that filmed the movie in my neighborhood, that they were like, I'd show up to Universal and they'd open up the gates and say, come on
We've been
in.
waiting for you.
Yeah, it was just this building. It was pouring rain, locked gates, nothing there. I got a duffel bag, limping around because I had a broken leg that I took my cast off before I came out. And I found a little dumpy motel, Universal Motel.
Yeah, the key's right.
Still have the key to the place. Yeah.
So when we met in 1997, you had already done a lot of stuff. When I met you, we met at the Century Club, world famous. Dr. Dre put it in one of his songs, the next episode. And I didn't know who you were. Like, I didn't know he was famous, but my friend at the time was like, you know who that is, right? And I was like, no, who is that? And she like started listing all these shows you had been in and all the stuff you had done. And I had no idea. Needless to say, you had a lot of credits. You had been on Pretty Woman. You had been on Married with Children, Who's the Boss?
I had my own show.
You had your own show.
No.
So she recognized you. I didn't watch much TV during those years, so I didn't know what was going on. But we met in 1997. I went to the bar to get something to drink, and you were standing there wearing a black leather jacket, and your hair was slicked back. Do you remember what I said?
Who are you, Donnie Brasco?
I said, who are you? No, I said, who are you, Donnie Brasco? And you said, no, but I know him.
Yeah.
And then you got me a beer. Anyway, that's a whole nother story.
He was a guest on my podcast.
Donnie Brasco. Yeah, he was so cool. Very cool guy. But anyways, fast forward then. So we start dating 1997. Fast forward 2 years later, 1999. You get a call from one of your friends in New York who has a proposal for you to write and produce a movie in New York, Kings of Brooklyn, and you decided to go. And that was a very pivotal moment in our relationship, very pivotal moment in your career and in your life. So tell us about what happened in 1999 with that movie when you decided to go produce it in New York.
Well, in 1999, I went to New York City. I wrote a script. I rewrote a script. It was a script that was given to me and it needed some work. So I hired a writer and a director, and I had a theater here in Hollywood on Melrose and Heliotrope that I had built with a bunch of other actor friends of mine. And I put it up as a play and did table readings and did rewrites. And then I flew out the guy who was the money guy, and I got him on board and to have me produce it. And I had never produced a film before, but I've been in the game for a dozen years, and he trusted me with producing this film. And I went to New York City and I had blinders on. I had never produced a film. I literally got a book on how to produce a movie.
For
and
dummies.
I read it on the plane, I I mean, that was my guide. You should see that. I still have the book on the shelf. It's falling apart because I used it all the time. I will put that book in the show links because it's a great book and it really taught me a lot about producing. And I went to New York, and it's the hardest place to make a movie. I produced a movie in New York City in 1999. I raised $2.5 million to make the film, and I had blinders on to make this film. Long story short, that movie that should have been a month, 2 months, money fell out, and we had to do reshoots. We needed another $500,000 to finish the film. It took a long time to get that finishing money, and I was in New York for 2 years making this film, trying to raise the money, trying to get it completed. And during that time, we broke up because I was in New York, you were in LA, and having a long distance relationship, I didn't feel, I was so like literally blind. All I had, I felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders making this film. I felt like I was responsible for $2.5 million. So I was just kind of locked in, laser focused on making this movie. I thought the movie was the most important thing ever. And,
But sorry to interrupt, but it's so interesting to me because you've interviewed a lot of people on your podcast, actors, writers, producers, and I've heard more than one of them, several, say, if I had known how hard this would be, whatever it is, I would have never done it.
yeah,
But they didn't know, right? So sometimes I feel like ignorance is bliss.
True.
Like, I'm just going to try this, whatever. And then you're doing it, you're learning as you go, figuring things out. And then looking back, you're like, wow, that shit was hard. If I had known how hard it was in advance, I probably wouldn't have done it. So that's what happened to you. You literally had no clue what you were doing, but you learned along the way. I remember visiting you in New York, and you were fully immersed in the project. Like, you were calling casting directors and you were setting everything up, and you look like a pro. Like, to me, it was like, this guy knows what he's doing. I better move out of the way because there's no stopping him. And that's the beauty of sometimes not even knowing
yeah.
what's
Well,
coming.
It was probably one of the toughest things I've ever done in my life, producing. It was a very, like I got beat up during the making of it. I mean, not only was I a producer, I was a writer, I was a lead actor in the film. So there was way too many hats to wear. And, I didn't delegate, and I took the weight of the whole film on my shoulders. Usually on a film, there's 5 or 6 different producers. I was the only producer. And that was my ego that got in the way. And I didn't delegate. So I had my hands in everything, which hindsight, now I look back and I go, wow, I learned how to make a film. I'm like every department, everything. I had my hands into everything. So, now I'm looking forward to the next film I'm producing because I know I can, produce a film now with my eyes closed because that was my film school.
Everybody's job. So when you delegate, you know what you're expecting from each person.
Yeah. So, but, the moral to that whole story about New York City was, I thought, it's interesting. I met a really big producer in New York City, and he could tell how stressed out I was making the film. And he said, Billy, it's just a movie. It's just a movie. He kept telling me that, but I didn't get it. I had put all my marbles in making this film. Long story short, I had the movie, I had all the stuff, the material stuff. I always dreamt that I wanted a loft in Soho. I had that. I had the title, producer, star, had all this stuff that you think is going to make you happy, but I was miserable. I was like, is this it? Truly miserable. And
it was ego based.
Yeah, it was ego based, and there was something missing in my life. And that was you. And, right now I don't have all that stuff, but I'm the richest man alive because I have you. And, when I came back 2 years later, you still love me, and you took me back, and I was able to accept your love because, the biggest problem with me was I carried around a lot of stories from my childhood. that I wasn't worthy of love. I'm going to give you an example. My mother used to drag me to the mailbox as a kid, open it, and go, "Look, your father doesn't send child support." So, what does a little boy do? He creates a story. I don't deserve money. I don't deserve love. I'm not worthy. Blah 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 blah. It's a bunch of noise. I created a story, but the little boy becomes a man, and he takes that story and he carries it around like a truth. So when I had my own TV series, well, guess what I was doing? I was flying to Caesar's Palace. Give me the suite with the baby grand piano, pissing it away on a roulette table because the money was burning a hole in my pocket because I felt like I didn't deserve it. When I had women in my life that were attracted, I'd sabotage it. Because I felt like I didn't deserve it. And I sabotaged our love in the beginning because I felt like I wasn't worthy of it. I was afraid to get hurt. But when I came back 2 years, they say if you let something go and it comes back to you, it's real. And when I came back and you were willing to take me back and you told me that I do deserve love and that you love me and you wouldn't hurt me.
I told you I would wait for you.
Yeah, but it literally, you saved my life in so many ways. I mean,
well, those 2 years were probably the best thing that could have happened for us, for our relationship, because it just sealed the deal for me. I knew you were the one the whole time you were gone. And for you, and I had to let you go. I had to like cut it. Like I remember at one point I was like, lose my effing number. So mad.
yeah,
Like I tell him I'll wait for you. And then I'm like, lose my effing number. But I knew that you were the one. And so I'm glad you came back to me. But it goes back to the whole thing of, if you're going to blame people for the bad, you got to blame them for the good. So your childhood was rough, but everything that you went through has brought you to the point where you are today.
absolutely.
And you can appreciate.
Sure.
things
And the biggest thing is, the story, change your story, change your life. I carried around a lot of stories as a little boy. I created a lot of stories. Events happened and a story was created. The damaged little boy created a story. And I carried those stories around with me my whole life. I mean, I battled depression. I tried to numb away the pain, and none of that, I could never let go of the pain. It was really, it took, when the shit hit the fan for me, with people dying around me, when my 11-year-old niece Ellie passed away from brain cancer and my stepfather died of prostate cancer and we had a miscarriage and our dog ran out and got hit by a car. And then when you got diagnosed with breast cancer, really shook me, rocked me to the core. And I was in a bad place.
Yeah, well, that's why we got to live life to the fullest.
Yeah, but it
Right?
got me,
Make the
it
most
got
of
me,
it.
it got me on my knees, and I found my faith, and I got to let go of the pain and free myself and know that I do deserve love. I do, just like everybody who's listening right now, that you're not the little voice in your head. You're not that little fearful voice. You do deserve everything that is yours by divine right. Love, peace, joy, wealth, health, abundance, you name it, you deserve it. So, you got to let go of the story. And I truly let go and let God, and I freed myself up, and I've never been depressed since. And
That's awesome.
and my life, I got my life. I mean, I'm the president of the Lucky Club. I have my beautiful wife. I have my beautiful son. I have a very successful studio here for the past 7 years. You got to retire. You started Manhattan Model Studios. You're living your passion, your dream. So
I'm loving it.
it's been amazing. So I'm just truly grateful. Everything had to happen.
Mhm.
Everything happens
happened
for a reason.
perfectly,
Yeah.
even though we might not like it. Everything happens the
Yeah.
way it
Well,
happens, and we have to figure out how we're going to react and move forward.
and sometimes, when you're in the shit, there's a miracle there. You got to look for the miracles, you know. The shit of cancer, I like to call it the fertilizer. I planted seeds of the Manhattan Actor Studio, and a beautiful thing came out. You know, during COVID, I planted the seeds of the podcast, and a beautiful thing came out. You know, my love for you, you know, everything that we went through, you know, I want to make sure that everybody knows that you're 100% cancer free and you're healthy. But during that time, you know, you really realize that life is short. Don't take shit for granted. Tell the people in your life that you love them. You know, appreciate the present. You can't be in the past. I drove my vehicle of life looking in the rear view mirror, and you crash when you're looking in the rear view mirror. And
Gotta look forward.
yeah, well,
Gotta
you know,
enjoy your
but
life.
truly, I mean, the future doesn't exist either. So you got to be right here now in the present, and now and right now in this moment right here. And that's where the magic happens, in the now, and being grateful for everything that you have. You know, truly being in gratitude every day.
So I know we just talked about not looking in the past, but I do have a question for you. What has been your favorite on-set experience on any movie set or television set or play or anything like that? What's been your favorite experience?
Does it have to be on set? Because I mean, for me, I've had a lot of them. I've been very blessed in my career. I've worked with some very, very, you know, Academy Award winners, and just some really talented people in the industry, you know. I mean, I love doing Who's the Boss, because it was doing a play and it was in front of a live audience, and we did 2 shows and we rehearsed like a play. And then, you
2
know,
shows a day.
yeah, no, well, we rehearsed, you know, we blocked one day and we
Oh.
rehearsed, and then we went on set and we blocked for cameras, and then we did, you know, like a, but then we had a show, was it Thursdays or Fridays? We did it 2 shows in front of a live audience.
Oh, got it.
So, you know, that was just, and it was such a, you're working with some amazing Tony Danza, who, you know, had more, had Taxi for whatever years, and Who's the Boss. I mean, yeah, we had been on television doing comedies for, you know, 20 years. You know, it was like ridiculous. You know, Catherine Hellman, a genius, a comic genius. Judith Light, you know, I learned so much from them, and we had so much fun, and it was a big family, and it was just like when it was showtime, and, you know, we were backstage, and we just come on, and just the roar of the audience when they would laugh at our jokes that we worked on all week long. And it was just, that was magical. That was truly like doing a play, and I love that element of it.
Yeah.
So I would say that's one of my fond experience. Another one is one that I wasn't on set, but it was an audition. I had done Pretty Woman with Gary Marshall and his sister Penny Marshall, that I grew up watching, Laverne from Laverne and Shirley. She was directing a movie with Robert De Niro called Awakenings. And I was in Palm Springs, and I had auditioned, and I got a call saying, "Hey, they want to screen test you with Robert De Niro and Penny Marshall." So I literally jumped in my car, drove back 100 miles an hour, because I wanted to get ready for this thing. And I showed up to, I believe it was Warner Brothers, on a Sunday. The studio was closed, and it was me. I walked into a room, and it was me, Robert De Niro, my idol in acting,
Wow.
Penny Marshall. I grew up watching her on Laverne and Shirley. What is it? Shmuel Schlemazel, Hot and Peppers and
I still don't know what that
But,
means.
you know, I grew up watching her, you know, and, you know, De Niro was my idol, you know, as a young actor growing up. I idolized anything he did. So, you know, I was looking for a Raging Bull, Jake LaMotta, or, you know, Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, but I got Leonard, some like kind of, you know, he was kind of sick, and he was just very quiet and very shy. And we're doing a screen test, and
Was he in full character the whole time?
yeah, he was in character.
Didn't break character.
He didn't
at all.
break character, and it, you know, it was kind of a little shock to me, because, you know, he was kind of like this old sick guy compared to, you know, what I thought I was going to see in that room. But we had a scene, and I was a cab driver who dropped him off, and it's a really bad neighborhood. And I'm trying to tell him, you know, this is a bad neighborhood. Let me get you out of here, whatever. And we're doing this scene, and you know, there's a cameraman and Penny Marshall, and De Niro is like on this bench, and I said, "Come on, let me get you out." And when I go to lift him up, he lays there dead weight, and seriously makes me struggle to get him up. And when I'm struggling in that moment, he had done nothing, but he gave me so much. In that moment, everything became real.
Right.
And she never yelled cut. So I took Robert De Niro and I put him over my shoulder. I'm carrying Robert De Niro. Go, come on, babe, I'm going to get you out. I played the Puerto Rican cab driver. I'm going to get you home, Lenny. And we just started improvising. And then finally she yells cut, and I put Robert De Niro down very gingerly. and he goes, "That was good. That was good." And that for me was, you know, I literally I floated out of the room. I was like, you know, I got to work with De Niro.
So two things. One is you don't stop until the director yells cut.
Correct. Right? Between action and cut, you stay in character the whole time.
Yeah. You don't know what's going on. They might be loving it. That might be the scene that's going to end up in the movie or whatever you're doing. So you don't stop till the director yells cut. The other thing is, I was going to ask you what you define a generous actor to be. Sounds to me like that's a good example of a generous actor.
Yeah. So, you know, acting is like a tennis match. You know, I serve the ball onto your side of the court. You hit it back with a little spin. I got to react to that. I got to go to the corner. I got to hit it, you know, so it's about really listening and reacting, and having, when you're working with an actor of that caliber, they're going to feed you. They're going to give you stuff. You know, if you're just in the moment, you know, that's a giving actor, somebody who's not, you know, just like, what's my next line, but is really there giving you stuff, hitting, putting a little spin on the ball. So you got to go react to that. Acting is listening and reacting, not just memorizing a bunch of words. So I think truly a giving actor is one that's open, you know, especially when you're on a set, like to communicate and really, you know, if you have an idea and you say, hey, well, why don't we try it like this, that they're open to it. I mean, I've worked with a lot of actors that could have been like jerks because they're at that level, you know, but they were open to, you know, it's a collaboration. You want the other actor that you're working with to be great because it's only going to make you look better.
How about when you were on NYPD Blue and you did that scene with Jimmy Smits and what's the other guy's name?
Dennis Franz.
Dennis Franz. Yeah. And you wanted to do something different and you went for it. And they didn't even know what you were going to do, right? And they just like, I mean, that scene was amazing and they just went with it.
Yeah, and they were breaking all the rules because the writer David Milch, you know, it's a long story, but you know, I had auditioned to play this role. My character is the son of a mafia boss who's a psychopath who shoots his own brother in the head because he found out that he's gay, and I killed 2 other people in a bridal shop. Some guy trying to blackmail me, so I shove $13 up his ass and I put him in a trash can. I mean, I'm like
that's terrible.
But that's my character. He was a psychopath. But the scene that I had auditioned for is the interrogation scene when they finally catch me. They're looking for me the whole show, and this is when they catch me. And this is my interrogation. Well, when I got to set, and I was in makeup and they send me a new script, and it had all that scene that I auditioned was gone. It was like they destroyed it. And I was like, I saw Jimmy and Dennis in the makeup trailer, and I said, hey guys, you know, they didn't even know me. And I said, what happened to the scene? They don't even know what I was talking about because they hadn't read that's you know, those sides. Well, so I showed them, and they kind of agreed that it was a better, you know, this was a better scene, whatever. But long story short, I went to the director. She said, no. She says, you stick to the words on the page. David Milch, he's a stickler. You got to, you know, those are his words. So I said, okay, well, whatever. You know, we're down on the set, we're doing it, and it wasn't going anywhere. And I was like, you know, I said, Jimmy, Dennis, can I go back to the old stuff? And they were like, And David Milch showed up to the set, and he was literally like watching. And I went to the director and I said, Elodie, can I please go back to that, other scene? She says, no. She says, David's standing right there. So after we did it a couple more takes, I looked at Jimmy and Dennis, and I was in a cage in a holding cell, and I said, guys, I got to play here. And Jimmy smiled at me, and Dennis went. So I brought back all of this stuff that they cut out, and I even called Dennis France a fat fuck, whatever. And I mean,
And no one yelled cut.
but it became explosive because I started. I said, that gun, that badge don't scare me. You know, like I'm a psychopath. Like, and he started banging on the cage. I started banging. I started cursing or whatever. As he's walking out from the set, you know, in the scene, he goes, "You can't say fuck on ABC." Cut.
Do it again.
Elodie walks over. David Milch, the writer looks, the producer of the show looks, and she walks over to me. She goes, "Well, you got your way, kid." She goes, "Yeah, I want you to do it exactly the same way. We cut out all the F words and let's do it, right?" And I forgot to tell you, before this, David Milch showed up to the set and he said, "What's the problem here?"
Ooh.
And I said, "Well, and I explained." He said, "This is not about you, kid." He says, "This is about our principled actors right here." He says, this is not Stephen J. Cannell. This is Stephen Bochco and blah, 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 blah. And I said, "Listen, you're the boss." I knew I was getting fired. So
Right.
I said, "You're the boss. I'll say the lines however you want." After that, he came up to me after we shot it and he caught me in the hallway and he said, "You got some engine on you, kid." He said, "You got some engine on you, kid." He says, "I'm going to be leaving here and I'm going to be creating a new show and I'd like to write a character for you." And I told him, "I'm sorry, but I'm leaving to New York to produce a film." That's when I was going to make Kings of Brooklyn. But
Wow.
I stood my ground and I said it wasn't about me. It was about the show. It was about the character.
Yeah.
And if anybody watches the show, it's a powerful scene.
Yeah, it's a great scene.
The episode's called "A Tush Full of Dollars."
So let me ask you this. Is it easy to break into Hollywood?
Is it easy to break into Hollywood? I would say it depends on how bad you want it. When I came out to Hollywood, I was relentless in the pursuit of my thing. If I showed up to the gate at Warner Brothers and the security guard said, "Sorry, kid, you can't come in," I'd walk around the block, I'd climb the fence, I jumped a lot, and I was on there hanging out with Kevin Bacon doing it while he was filming. Nobody knew I just jumped on the lot. You can't do that now.
Yeah,
But I was truly relentless. I wanted it really bad. I found out these things they were called breakdowns. They came out every morning and they delivered them to the front of an agent's office and they had all the roles that they were casting. Well, what did I do? I went, and as soon as the guy dropped off the manila envelope, I'd pick it up and I'd go to Denny's and I'd go through the breakdowns and I'd take my headshots and I put them in a folder, and then I created I was my own manager. And I mean, I wanted it bad. And so you got to be hungry. This is not a business you go in and give 50%. If you truly want this and you go after it like you mean it, it's a rough road. It's a roller coaster ride, but it's doable. I mean, I've made more actors that have knocked on my door with a dream and they had no idea how to get started. And after I trained them, they're working actors. I mean, I ran into one of my actors, Rob Zappo, and he just booked his 5th commercial.
That's awesome.
I mean, he's like on fire,
So, but how does that translate to today's times? Because breakdowns are not in paper anymore. They're not delivered to somebody's door. So what can if somebody's listening right now and they're like, "Okay, but what do I do right now?" What's the first, second, maybe first 3 steps that someone could take to get their career going? What would you say are the top 3 things they can do right now?
Study the craft.
Take acting classes.
Yeah, you got to know what you're doing. Okay, if you don't know what you're doing, and that casting director, that door opens up one time. If you walk into that door and you don't know what you're doing, that door is going to close. If you fail in that audition, that door is going to close. Now, if you come into that room, guns blazing, 150%, and you knock their socks off, you just made a fan. That casting director is going to be a fan of your work. She's going to bring you back. She's going to put you on that list because you know what? You made her look good. And that's
what if you're in Nebraska?
If you're in Nebraska, well, you find what's going on in Nebraska, find local theater, find film schools. There's schools that have a film department. Go, hey, I'm an actor. I would love to be involved. Do some plays. Start studying your craft. You got to know, if you want to be a professional actor in Hollywood, you don't click your heels 3 times and boom, you're in
Right.
movies. You got to know what you're doing. So
you could also take classes over Zoom right now.
yes,
That's
listen,
a
I have
big
students
thing.
all over the world in different countries. You can study with me. It doesn't matter. Since the pandemic, you don't have to be here in my school. This is not a virtual background. This is a real school. You don't, but everything's online, and this is the future of casting. So you have to
Self-tape.
master the art of self-tapes. You have to master the art of Zoom callbacks. That's the way you're going to work. So
Okay. So step one,
study.
training. Take some classes, study. What's step two?
Step two would be making sure you have the right materials that show your castability. Like, you got to know, what are you selling? You're a product. You're selling something to Hollywood. They got to know what they're buying. I knew exactly what I was selling when I came to Hollywood. I was selling the New York street kid. That was what I was selling. I was working out before I came out here. I was selling the teen idol, and that's what I sold to them, and that's what they bought. I knew exactly what I was selling. You have to know what you're selling. What is your castability? Make a list. What is my, the 5 roles that I see myself playing?
You can ask your friends too,
Yeah.
how they see you, right?
You got to know what your castability is, what you're selling, and then really create a demo reel. Find, the cool thing is now with technology, these phones, the cameras on them are amazing. Find a monologue, you playing a lawyer or a doctor or whatever your castability is, and film yourself and have a piece of footage of you actually, doing that. So that you can put on casting networks, Actors Access, one of these casting websites. And, if I'm a casting director, first you got to have a really good picture of yourself. And I'm not talking about a headshot that your friend shot in the backyard. You want something that's professional. You want to invest in a really good headshot that shows your castability. And then you want to have some kind of a reel where they click on it and they go, oh my gosh, there it is. This person can act. Because if you don't have that, they go, well, no credits, no nothing. How do we know this person can act? So it's really
So
about
you've
showing
got
them.
your training. You've got your tools of the trade, which are headshots and reels.
Mhm.
That's step 2. Step 3, I'm assuming, would be start submitting yourself on projects.
Yeah.
Right? So how would you do that if you're in Nebraska or Indiana or wherever you are in the world? How would you start to submit yourself if you don't have an agent yet?
Well, you get yourself an Actors Access account,
Okay.
casting networks, LA Casting.
Mhm.
There's Casting Frontier, there's Backstage, there's many acting, but those are the top ones. You create an account with your profile, with your headshot, your demo reel, your materials, and you start becoming your own manager. You look at the breakdowns on a daily basis. You got to put your parameters, your age range, your special skills, or whatever it is. You got to know, what's my type. And, if you see something that looks your type, submit yourself.
I have a student that just submitted herself on 10 projects on LA Casting. She
Mhm.
got 3 requests.
That's
just
awesome.
This last week.
Yeah,
So it's doable.
Yeah. And, I could tell you hundreds of stories that one of my actresses, she had submitted herself like 100 things and nothing came, not one audition. She was literally ready to quit. And I said, no, you just keep putting it out there. And then boom, she booked like 5 jobs after that.
Wow.
And it was, she was
she
really,
was
she was at the 1-yard line, ready to score a
ready to
touchdown,
quit.
but she was ready to give up because she, you got to have thick skin.
Yeah, when I was at the height of my modeling and I was going out on auditions all the time, I could go out on 10, 20 auditions and sometimes not get anything. And then all of a sudden I'd go on 5 auditions and book all 5 of them. it's like you never know. There's no rhyme or reason in the business. And you've experienced the same thing. Like it could be totally quiet and then all of a sudden you're booked on 3 things. And guess what? They all shoot on the same day.
Yeah, how many times I've had to,
That's
I
happened
booked
to you
3
so
jobs and I
many
had to
times.
turn 2 of them down.
No, but they were able to work with you.
Sometimes, but sometimes they shoot at the same time and you
Yeah.
have to pick, choose.
It's a funny business.
Yep.
So if you could go back in time and tell the, let's see, the 18-year-old Billy, if you could give the 18-year-old Billy some advice, what would you tell him? Don't let that girl go. Don't let that one Diana girl go. No.
No.
You're too young.
He'd be like, what? What are you talking about?
I'm 18.
Yeah, no, there was 18. There was a lot of girls there. You go, which one are you talking about?
Which Diana?
Which one? 18. Wow, 18.
I was gonna ask you 15, but let's go with 18.
Okay, well, 18, I would say love yourself. Love yourself.
That's big.
Yeah, love yourself.
That's everything.
Be proud of who you are. Don't care what other people think of you. At that time, I was really concerned about, I was uncomfortable in my own skin. I was letting those stories run, like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not valuable, blah, 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 bunch of noise. So just know like who you are, and this is my belief. I believe that everybody, the listener out there, that you were created a masterpiece and there is nothing wrong with you. Absolutely nothing, except for the little noise that between your ears. And if you listen to that, if I like to say, when you're in your head, you're dead. When you're in your heart, you're smart. And just go to your heart and go to who you really are. And that's that beautiful light within you. That's your magic. That's your power. And come from your light and love. And that's a game changer. I wish I knew that. I was too hard on myself. I beat myself up a lot. I became my abuser. And I was really tough on myself. And that's because I didn't love myself. So I would say truly love yourself. Own who you are, be proud of who you are, and, have fun. Life is short. Be kind, love.
Can I add one thing to tell the 18-year-old Billy?
What?
Save some of that money. Don't blow it in Vegas. Put 401k it.
Yeah.
Put it in the stock market.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I wish somebody, that's, yeah, that I would say definitely learn to manage money, learn how to take that money and invest it. Because I'll tell you, back then, if I would have invested, there was a couple opportunities, back then, if I would have invested in, there was a building in Brooklyn. That building right now could be worth, I could have bought it for nothing back then. I could have bought it, but it'd be worth millions now. So yeah, I would say definitely start early. Start investing early. Start saving your money early.
Anything you want to add before we end our podcast? Any final thoughts? Anything that you feel your listeners need to hear here and now?
Well, I just said it, it's really love yourself, be kind to yourself. Don't live in the past, let go, free yourself. Maybe you've been hurt in the past and you're holding on to stuff, and holding on to that anger, resentment, whatever. It's just toxic. You just got to let go of it and you got to move forward. And you truly, if you have a dream in your heart, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Make sure you're not doing it because you're trying to prove something to somebody, or you're trying to, you want to be in this business. If you want to become rich and famous, you're probably getting into it for the wrong reason. If you're trying to prove people wrong, it's probably the wrong reason. It's got to be something that you're truly passionate about and you love it and it's in you and this is your gift. And, it's going to be a bumpy road. It's going to be a roller coaster, but if it's in you and you love it and it's your passion, it's a beautiful journey. This acting career is just, it's a noble occupation, and it's fun, so do it because it's your passion. And if you're going to do it like you fucking mean it. Go
Amen.
after it with a vengeance. Don't take no for an answer. Get some no's. You want to get no's. You want to get a lot of no's, as many no's as possible, because no's mean you're in the game, and every no brings you closer to a yes. And then it's just a matter of time. And don't take the rejection, the stuff, and don't take it personal. It's a business. You just got to let it like kind of roll off and go next, next. Just
Yep.
keep moving forward. And if you get knocked down, and you will get knocked down, dust yourself off, get back up, and keep swinging and keep going after that dream, and it will happen.
And that's what I tell my students, don't take it personal, because you could have been the top two, like the last two standing, but you happen to be brunette, the other one is blonde, and somebody comes in the room and says, we're going to go with the blonde one today.
Yeah.
And you didn't even know how close you were to getting that gig or whatever it is. So you can't take anything personal in this business. What's meant to be yours is going to be yours, and no one can take that away.
Yeah. So, I teach the craft of acting, right? I teach the business. It's show business. You got to know show, you got to know business. But, I can't teach, you can't buy it. It can't be taught. It can't be bought. It's that X factor. It's that the grustle, the grind, and the hustle that you got to have. So go get your grustle on, go after your dream with a vengeance, and we'll see you in Hollywood.
I love you.
I love you. Bye. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more, you can click here to watch the full podcast. Please make sure you subscribe. Please leave a comment if you have any questions you'd like me to answer on a future podcast. Make sure you turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified next time I post a video. And I will see you next time. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.